Good morning, students. Now I am going to teach SST Chapter 1 Where, When, and How. In Class 8, we study modern India or modern history. In India, the modern period began with the establishment of the British rule under the East India Company. With the establishment of the British rule in several changes and developments took places in the political, economic, social and cultural life of India. What type of changes took place? Now I am going to say to you. Number one, with the changes, with the coming of the British, new system of administration, law and revenue collection were introduced in India. The purpose of the British rule was to colonize India and control Indian market, to drain away wealth from India. Number one, changes. Number two, British rule led the exploitation of peasants, artists, craftsmen, and ruined the handicraft industry in India. Number third is that naturally the Indian protested against the colonial oppression, leading to sporadic incidents of localized violence, and finally the mass revolt in 1857. Next is that during the British rule, India witnessed numerous social and cultural changes. The Western education and its far-reaching impact left the utmost mark on the intelligentsia. During the British rule, a number of major social legislation were passed to prevent child marriage, sati, and the female infanticide. Laws were passed to improve the condition of the widows and impart education to women. Indian reforms led major protest against the social and evil caste system. This was the changes and this was the major development in India after the establishment of the British rule under the East India Company. Now we have to understand more about these things. The British rule gave rise to colonial cities like Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, and the hill station of India were developed during this period. The most dynamic and the challenging aspect of modern Indian history was the siege of Indian national movement, where a new number of groups like the Indian National Congress, the revolutionaries and peasants and the tribal groups challenged the British rule following different kinds of strategies. Indian National Movement gave rise to many dynamic leaders whose legacy still continues to inspire us. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Sardar Patel, and number of under patriots have left their footprints on the gloom path of the Indian national movement. Now the colonial periods begin. Many historians refer to the period of British as the colonial periods. This is because India was a victim of the colonial domination and exploitation. This period extends approximately from the middle of the 18th century up to the India's independence. It till continued till India got independence. This period tells us how the British establishment under control over the Indian political and economic system, and how Indian cultures and society come under the influence of the British rule. Excluding a few, this was a dynamic period also in the world history, as during this period events like the Russian Revolution, French Revolution, American Wars of Independence, First World War, and the Second World War took place. From where we got the information about it. That means sources of information. The official records. One of the most authentic sources of information for this period are the official records of the British administration. The British administration methodically and meticulously records every plans, policy, treaty, and agreement they made. Moreover, the British preserved all the important documents. For this purpose, they set up record room along with all administrative institutions like collectorates, secretariats, and law courts. Museum and archives were also set up for this purpose. These official documents and the records were invaluable sources of information about the British period. Next is that from the where by the sources that we get information about it, and literacy sources. We have innumerable literacy sources of this period comprising the newspaper, journals, plays, novels, letters, diaries, biographies, and autobiographies. Large number of nationalist newspapers like the Hindu, Amrita Bazar, Patrika, Kesari, etc. were published in these newspapers. The British policies were criticized openly, putting forth the print of the view of Indian. Novels, essays, poems also aroused national consciousness. Some of the important nationalist writers of the period were Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who wrote in Bangla, Vishnu Shastri, Marathi writers, Bhadrabhendu, Harsh Chandra, who wrote in Hindi, and Subramania Bharati, a Tamil writer. Writes like Premchand and Sarat Chandra Chatterjee wrote about the poor and the oppressed peoples of rural India. We also have diaries of people and autobiographies of public figures. Newspapers are also important sources of information about the political and social affairs. Besides literacy sources, photographs, painting, maps, and statues are also important sources of information about that period. They give us glimpse of society, lifestyle, dress, and culture of these times. And these all are the sources of information of the modern Indian history. And now we get information from the oral history also. A fascinating aspect of the colonial period is about that the first-hand personal accounts of the people who lived in British India and experienced various facts of British rule. We also have intention and traumatic accounts of people who went through the dilemma of partition. Such first-hand accounts and also invaluable sources of information that we are getting from the sources. My dear student, you also know that some great person who change the differences, who make the differences, who bring the change. In that was Bikaji Kama. Born September 1861 and continued till 13 August 1936. I think all of you know about the Bikaji Kama. Now I am going to say some lines about Bikaji Kama. Bikaji Rustam Kama was born in large Farsi family. Right from the childhood, she was a diligent, disciplined child with a love of language. She actively participated in caring for the plague victim of Bombay in 1896. Having contracted large itself, she was sent for treatment to England. She actively took part in the Indian freedom struggle. I think she was great that she has done lots of things in the Indian freedom